Hi there, this is Ducky, and welcome to my overview and commentary of a 18 Underrot. It will be the week of Fortified, Grievous, Sanguine, and Awakened. So this route is going to focus on large packs that you can do because there's no affixes that are going to directly stop you from like chain pulling, such as bursting or bolstering. Grievous is something to really worry about, of course, but as long as your healer's on top of things and people are not standing in too much, it shouldn't be too big of an issue. And Fortified in certain parts of the dungeon are going to be really important to remember, because the Blood Swarmers, for instance, later on are going to do a lot of damage during, or since it's Fortified. So, the first thing we're going to do is, if you have a class that is able to either sap or imprison this maggot, you're going to want to do that. We do not want to pull this, it's not necessary, and instead we're going to be pulling this section right here. We want to pull all these of 5 together. The matron is going to cast a war cry on these guys, and it's going to cause them to attack faster and cast faster. The only one that I think is really important to get the enrage off of, if you can get the enrage, is the Blood Priest. The Blood Priest's Darker Constitution and Gifted Gahoon are going to come out very quickly, so we're going to want to make sure that that gets interrupted. But with the war cry, it can be near instant. So we want to make sure that that gets dispelled, or displace the war cry in some way so that they don't get the buff. Following this pack, we're going to take the ticks by themselves. Fortified Weeks ticks, they're super deadly. We just want to be as careful as possible and take care of them with extreme caution. You'll be then taking this obelisk toward the Elder. Here's where you're going to lust. Not much happens here, just take care of this boss and continue moving on. Here, this is a pretty good pack to pull together. As long as you have at least 2 interrupts, which I really hope you do. You'll struggle a lot in this dungeon if you don't have any interrupts, but so you'll pull this together, you'll assign one person to each of your lashers, and you'll take care of that. These guys don't move and these guys don't move, so you can freely use this area to deal with the blobs decaying wave of decay. After this, I like to take this pack here with 3 interrupts, and then like 1 or 2 of these guys as well. Kind of just add them in there. Take a Bloodstormer if you want, take an extra Lasher if you want, take another Maggot if you want. Kind of like, just pull about 5 things in total is pretty much what you're aiming to do here. After this, you're going to want to pull one of these Bloodswarmers, and then just a combination of anything that's not another Bloodswarmer, unless you're feeling really confident or you have a lot of cooldowns ready. If you have tons of cooldowns, you could pull 2 of these and then start working your way over to this side. If you don't have cooldowns, take it slow. Just take care of just 1 or 2 at a time. Take the Bloodswarmer down. You want to limit yourself to 1 Bloodswarmer per pack if you're not feeling very confident. So rinse and repeat this for most of this part here. You can pull all this together, and then these 2 because there's a Bloodswarmer, and then like these ones, and then finish it off with these ones, and you've got all your count for this area. If you do not have your Bloodlust back up by the time you get to Cragmaw, you're going to want to then keep pulling, take this pack, and after while you fight this pack, you're going to be really careful of the Death Speakers on Holy Frenzy, or Wicked Frenzy. You're going to want to make sure that this gets interrupted by either a stun, incapacitate, stuff like that, pushbacks. If it does go on one of the reanimated guardians, try to get an enrage soothe off of it, or to get it off. We're going to take this obelisk just past this grotesque horror. We really don't want to be fighting this. It requires everyone's coordination in order to kill due to his high damage death bolts. So it's best to not fight him if we can help it, because we don't really want to pull just one thing at a time. That's pretty inefficient. And the efficiency it gets more and more important as the key level goes up. The video that will be following this is going to be on an 18, so it's not very high, but it's also not very low either. The importance of efficiency is still there. After the obelisk, we're going to take care of these this Death Speaker pack. Is just like this one, just a little bit more deadly because there's 1 extra reanimated guardian. And then we're going to take these Defilers. So the Defilers have 2 casts you have to worry about, the Shadowbolt Volley and the Withering Curse. You just assign 1 person to each of these interrupts, and you shouldn't have a problem for each one. If you have to let something go through, let the Shadowbolt Volley go through if you really have to. I don't really suggest it at all, but if that's really what it comes down to, then fine. You can use push abilities like Typhoon and Ring of Peace as well to stop the cast. if you still don't have your Bloodlust up by the time you get the Sporecaller, just take care of Sporecaller and then cycle your way backwards. This is the point where it's not efficient anymore to keep going. Just make your way back, kill Cragmaw. But if you can get to this point, kill this boss, and your lust is still not up, you're in such a good spot that it really doesn't even matter anyway. Cragmaw can only be really annoying if you get like a tantrum at like 10%. You know, that little bit of extra damage from Bloodlust. Having haste would have like really helped you. That's when having the lust for Cragmaw is important, because that extra tantrum can add 30 seconds to your timer pretty easily. And it could also lead to a wipe on high Tyrannical weeks. After this, I like to pull this Horror and this Corruptor together. You just have full focus on the Grotesque Horror due to the interrupts that are required, and just watch the frontals from the Corruptor. This is another good pack for the same, pretty much the same reason. You need 2 interrupts for this guy and 2 interrupts for this guy, the Grotesque Horror. You want to save your stun interrupts for the Grotesque Horror and focus it down. You should have it down at about 6 interrupts, ideally. Like, that's realistically what should work. So you need 2 interrupts and then probably about 5 to 6 to kill this guy on most levels. Or less, that'd be even better. We take then this pack with this Corruptor. The Corruptor doesn't add a whole lot to the damage. He doesn't hit very hard, and honestly, he's just not too bad. I'm not too worried about him. So you pull these together, make sure you deal with the Unholy Frenzy, and then you take the Obelisk. So on this week, it's going to be the Blob. That's going to be the one that we take with the boss. If you really just hate the Blob, you can just not take any of this. And you can go to this side instead. That's totally fine, if that's what you wish. Just change it up just like so. And now you've got the Void Weaver as your last one here, so we gotta take these out. You'll have to pull some extra stuff if you do plan to do this. This is like an okay pack to pull back here if you had to do it, just because it's quick and easy. You can pull it with this pack if you really want to. So if you do like to go left instead and you don't have to do it, you want to deal with the interrupts instead of dealing with the stuff on the ground, then that's totally fine. But I am personally of the mind that I want to deal with the stuff on the ground because it's not that big of a deal. So we'll go back and fix our route again. So after this, we're going to take the Obelisk over to the Faceless Corruptor, kill them, go down and fight the boss. The boss is not much to him. The biggest thing for him is, I don't think I can actually move him. No. So when you're pulling this boss, you're going to take him to the edge, and you're going to then tank him. And you want all of the players to be stacked up relatively in the same area so that his expulsion hits one area. After that, you're going to want to move from that area to your next spot. Let's just say it's going to be right about here. And then you want to do the exact same thing. So there's going to be a bunch of stuff all over here. All these little vile expulsion that he did. So you want to line it up so that he's now again facing this area, and all of us are making it so our backs are to this stuff, so that then he'll then shoot it into it again. You just rinse and repeat this as you go all the way around. Have your back to the vile expulsion so that he shoots it into the expulsion. Try really hard not to shoot it against the wall, and never ever 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 shoot it in your path or to the middle. The middle is like not the worst, but definitely never shoot it into your path, because this is where you should run after vile expulsion starts casting. Alright, that's going to be everything for the Method Dungeon Tool side of this guide. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments or hit me on Discord. My links are in the description. And I'm going to now move over to the live commentary side of things. Thank you very much for listening. Take care. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the video part of the guide here, where we're going to be going through the dungeon and talking about the pulls and stuff that I just talked about in the Method Dungeon Tools side of this video. So let's get right into it. The first thing you're going to notice here is that we immediately imprison this maggot. So we do this because honestly we don't need it for count. It really just is inconsequential. You can do this with either a sap or with a imprison. It doesn't work with anything else, I don't think. You can also shroud past it if you have a rogue. We do this because The maggot can have really, really bad effects with the matron here, this larger enemy that we're going to see. Whenever the war card goes off, if you don't get a dispel off really quick on the enrage, or you don't even have an enrage dispel, the rotten biles are going to come out really fast, and they're going to just wreck the whole group. No one's going to have time to get around it, because you want to do like a fairly large pull here. You don't really just want to pull these two, like it's really, really slow if we do that. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. We pull the matron together, and we should be pulling toward into this blood priest too. Okay, it looks like we actually got the maggot, so that was not good. We are still going to do the pull as I wanted, but we will have to come back for the maggot because we got into combat with it. Something AoE did, maybe it was Twilight Devastation. The main thing you want to worry about in this pack is the matron is going to do a frontal called Savage Cleave. This also hurts really bad just by the actual charge, so that is something you have to worry about. Make sure everyone's topped up. But, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world. So this is the week of Sanguine Grievous. It was a couple weeks ago. But everything kind of works out the same way. There's not a lot of changes to this dungeon in bolstering. You just don't pull any ticks if you can help it. You have to pull these ones because they're on front of the obelisk. But otherwise, you just avoid them. So with the bolstering week, of course, you would not be able to tank them so close to that tick. That would be a pretty bad idea. But for this week, it's okay that we're on. So the maggot's gonna have to be attacked now. We're gonna take care of it and kill it. Maggot here. So this rotten bile, you're gonna want to do something to stop it. So there, I use paralysis on it, and you want to cycle through shit. Like you need to continuously do something to stop it. I'll do a leg sweep here. I think I call Imprison next, or maybe some kind of fell eruption. You want to never let it actually cast this if you can help it. You really only want to pull one maggot at a time, or as much as your group can allow. If you have a mage, you can basically pull one just for the mage, and then one for everybody else, because it is a beast. You can polymorph it. So it's not like too bad. He can just throw a poly every time Rotten Bile comes out, and boom, it'll be down. Or it'll rather stop the cast. The Samrak the Beckoner here is not too difficult. You just take care of the adds first because they're going to really hurt the tank, and then you just move forward. Not too bad for Grievous. I take a look at my damage here because I'm wondering why I'm not doing that much, but in this one I think I'm running my versatility gear. Yeah, it looks like I am based on my buffs, so not really worrying about that too much. My damage won't be that high, but my survivability is going to be pretty top notch. Coming out of here, we're going to be pulling Elder Leaxa. You want to make sure that the blood bolts are interrupted in a good order, leaving one interrupt, preferably arranged, to take care of the clone that's going to spawn in a sec here. That Sanguine Feast is a lot of damage. It is just small enough that you can attack it or stay in melee while it's happening. So here I'll have somebody interrupt it. I had our shaman do it. And we'll continue to kill the boss. It's fortified. It's not that big of a deal. We don't really worry that much. Creeping Rod is a frontal that will just shoot out in a direction. You just have to worry about that too. Other than that, boss is really, really straightforward. If you have a protection warrior, this boss can be really fun because you should let him spell reflect one cast of his choosing. Often people do it on the clone because the clone does not have a lot of health compared to the boss, and a spell reflected blood bolt on a high tyrannical setting, even on fortified it's pretty good, but on high tyrannical it's really good, will almost kill it in one hit. It's pretty awesome. We take these 3 living rots here. I don't normally just pull just these, but something made me feel unsafe here. I do have 1 Twilight Dev, I think like the one level 1, but something here made me feel unsafe. Or I was waiting for the pat, that was probably more the case. We set interrupts here. I have our Demon Hunter on star, and I think I'm on circle, and we just take care of these guys. If you have 4 interrupts, consistent interrupts, like enough melee interrupts to do more, you can even pull the next pack with all this. That's totally fine, because one person can interrupt 1 of the lashers by themselves, and then you also need a disease to spell for the last one, so to have all 5. We have a monk, so I can handle that. This pull is largely the same. We just pulled these because there's just an opportunity for a lot of bad things to happen here. Also, we run a fire mage, and he kind of just pumps everything. We don't worry too much about what's going on in the packs that he combusts. I should have pulled more, because honestly, this all would have died the exact same speed with the Fire Mage. So that was kind of a mistake for time's sake. These Bloodswarmers are by far the most important enemy in this entire dungeon. Fortified weeks are especially important, and as well, any week that has Raging is also really bad because of the severe damage increase that they're going to get once they reach 30%. Sanguine can also be kind of annoying because people who don't typically play tanks may have they just may not remember to move for Sanguine, or forget that Sanguine is an affix that they have to worry about, so they may kite through Sanguine, and that would be a bad day for sure. We don't have any classes that require, so there's the Bile that definitely should have been interrupted. I had a leg sweep, I could have done it. I also could have done it with Ring. That's my fault for not paying attention for sure. That's really important that gets interrupted, and we only try to pull those one at a time, because that will just take the whole group apart super fast. So our healer isn't here, but I'm pretty confident that I'm okay as a monk. I can pull some stuff slower while she runs back. I would have rezzed her in a normal situation, but I think she just quickly released because she knew that we could continue to pull just fine. The Bloodswarmers are very particular about how you're supposed to handle them. We're actually going to back up a sec here, because the Mage handles it really well here. You have to treat it like a hunter when you play, if you're playing Classic. So the distance for the charge is just a touch larger than the distance between these two guys right now, our Mage and the Bloodswarmer. If you were about here, he would then charge to you and then do additional damage and melee, which is something you really don't want. So you actually kind of want to keep him just out of melee range. Melee range is like right around here. So just outside of it, but not too far. It does take a lot of practice, I think, to get this really, really good. But if you can do it like our Mage does here, he doesn't ever jump, and he'll just do little stutter steps toward the Mage and never actually attacks him, which is really, really, really good. That's a fantastic strategy. That's something you'll need to employ as fortified keys get higher or during Raging. Fast forward a little bit here, because it's just the same pulls over and over. We don't really change anything too much here. Metamorphosis took down this Rotten Bile. I think I also paralysis it, which was a mistake, but he did a Metamorphosis just fine. I pushed that one with fantastic Ring of Peace, but the Ring of Peace was kind of bad because it also died. Something else died, and then they ate Sanguine for a sec. So here, I actually kited this a very particular way. I didn't do this by accident. If I would have stayed going this path, I knew that enemy was going to kite through the Sanguine. This is kind of like a minor thing, but that enemy is not close enough to death that he would have not made it this far. I believe he would have just made it here before he died, running toward me. So if I would have kept going left here like it looked like I was doing, I would have definitely kited him through Sanguine, and that would have prolonged the pull. But instead, I quickly made an adjustment to move to the right to change his pathing, because I didn't want him to run through Sanguine. It was definitely like an on-purpose thing. And you can even see here that this would have been true. This is where he died, so his path would have gone directly through that Sanguine. We take this Bloodswarmer just one because it's fortified. The Mage, again, does an excellent job at kiting. Like, really, just fantastic job. Really, really, really like his mechanics play. It's really excellent. We do it again because we're just really scared of this guy. We probably could have pulled more, but I mean, you can see there, he meleeed the Demon Hunter once and took him to half-life. Like, it's only an 18. It's not the highest key in the world, but it's really, 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 really difficult. Like, they just hurt so bad. We also avoid pulling one here for the same reason. We don't want to have to deal with the Living Rot, the Bile from the Rotten, from the Maggots, and also dealing with the Bloodswarmer. We'll do one more Fetid Swarmer here, and something that a lot of people do in Underrot, which is it's like a pretty common strategy, is they're gonna wait until Bloodlust cooldown comes up to fight Cragmaw. Cragmaw is a boss that every phase you have to do Tantrum is a lot of lost DPS and a lot of lost time because you really cannot do any damage during that phase unless you're basically just a hunter. Hunters are probably the only class that can really do it effectively. The rest of them, most range can do like, you know, poor man's versions of the rotations on the move, but hunters can do all of it. If you're not a hunter, it can be really difficult to handle that. Handle doing DPS, so it slows down the fight a lot. So right there, I run away because the Death Speaker casts Unholy Frenzy. I'm trying to pay really close attention to who it goes on because our druid can dispel the enrage off. The debuff that is going to go on you from taking a melee is going to just truck you, super truck. You're going to get really hurt by the tank. You don't ever want to get meleeed by the person who has Unholy Frenzy if it comes down to that. Like if he does get it, just kite away. It's a 6-second buff they get. It can be either dispelled by an enrage, or you can just run away because it's going to go on one of the reanimated guardians. We pull this obelisk here to avoid fighting this worm. The worm is really inefficient. You need all of your focus to be on it because it can do a lot of DPS if it's not paid attention to. And realistically, you don't want to pull anything with it because if you have to deal with some other mechanic while also dealing with this guy, you can very quickly spiral out of control. 2 or 3 Deathbolt casts can basically cause a wipe, especially if you don't have a priest who can just mass dispel off the debuff. So we kill him just a little bit past it and we never have to deal with it. Although in this run, I'm pretty sure somebody forgets to go back in and we have to kill it anyway, but the plan is there at least. This is the same pack as before. We just take care of Star first, which is the Death Speaker, and we cycle interrupts for the Unholy Frenzy. So there we were good. I actually rang a piece in the wrong direction, which is funny. I could have really messed myself up there if I did that. If he actually got that cast off, because I didn't have anywhere to go. And he would have also been in Sanguine, which would have been bad. When kiting Sanguine as a tank, it's something that takes a lot of effort to know, or a lot of practice rather, knowing where you need to not be for Sanguine. Like you definitely want to make sure that you're not going to be in a path that someone's going to have to walk over, just to avoid downtime in terms of having to heal and stuff like that. We come back now to Cragmaw because our Lusty buff is up. If your Lusty buff is still down by the time you even get to Sporecaller, just kill Sporecaller and come back. By the time you kill Sporecaller, it's definitely going to be up. And if it's still not up, doesn't even matter because your DPS is so high that you're just going to pump out the boss or pump out all the bosses anyway, so who cares? Yeah, that'd be crazy if your at least Lusty buff is still not up. Unless you lusted super late, but you should lust on Elder Leaxa, unless you have something specific in mind. But if you did, you probably aren't watching this guide anyway. So here you want to kind of like loosely assign where people go for Tantrum. It's really important that people are assigned so that you don't have a bunch of ticks coming up, like no one stayed here at the very beginning. I imagine one of our guys was overlapping with somebody else. When you do fight this boss, he has 2 mechanics, and he's going to do them in one of 2 ways. He's either going to do an indigestion into a charge and then Tantrum, or he's going to do charge, indigestion, charge. It typically doesn't do 2 charges if he does indigestion first after the intermission. When you do the charge, you're going to want to bait it to something in the room. It doesn't really matter what. A lot of people use that ribcage that we were near because it just is really easy to get to, and it you can put it really close to the boss and you won't have any problems taking care of it. Like it'll just run into the ribcage, all the stuff will drop really close to you and you'll have no problems. Make sure to split interrupts on this pack. The Shadow Bolt volley is really going to hurt, so you have we did overlap one of our interrupts here, but I think we just kill one or ring a piece it. We ring a piece it, which is good. One of them still goes off, and it basically just about killed the whole group. So you want to have one person for the Shadow Bolt volley, one person for the curse on each one. Definitely don't ever want either of those casts to go off. If you have 4 interrupts, you have more than enough. Here we're going to do Sporecaller. This is a boss I find that tanks have the worst time positioning, and they don't have the greatest understanding of how to position it. The boss does a frontal. The frontal is going to do a large portion of your screen, and you want to make sure that you're hitting the maximum amount of these spores as you can. This here is probably not even it's really not a great one myself, so I'm not too proud of this. We're going to slow it down here so we can see. As a monk, I take a few and I just should have detoxed it off, but I guess I'm not paying close attention. I did it super late. I should have done that faster, but anyway. The idea here is that you want to get as many of these like that if you can, and finish off an entire side by yourself. Because what it's going to come down to now is that you'll have 4 upheavals total, and our group did a really good job on the first set, and now all we have are just these here. So they have enough to just clear it out, and we're totally fine. I missed my Ring of Peace on my thing from beyond because I'm silly. Oops. And try your best to dodge the spores. If the boss is like sub 25-30%, you can just tunnel him throughout this next phase. You don't have to worry about doing upheavals or anything. But and that's really just unfortified. On Tyrannical, you can probably still get another one off. Yeah, you definitely want to just tunnel him if you can help it. So that was a really good one. I think I got 7 or 8. And I'm going to pull him back. I'm going to eat these two myself and just detox it, which I did that really quickly. And then I take these ones. It's really important to try to get as many of these as you can, or at least get them as clean as possible. Like, the most important thing is never leaving just one, and that goes for the DPS as well. When you're doing it, you want to make sure that you don't leave one on like the outside. Like, you'd really prefer to have like an entire area cleaned up rather than leaving one right at the very edge so that someone still has to go soak it, just for efficiency's sake. So this Faceless Corruptor always causes my group a lot of trouble. We have some issues finding the tentacles, which is funny. That Faceless, that frontal fear that he does, I try to Ring of Peace it every time, or we try to Typhoon it, because it is just, it's not like it's difficult to deal with or anything, and it's probably not even the right thing to do because he doesn't melee during that time, but it's just something that we sometimes have problems with, and I figure it's easier to just handle that myself. So I do have one go down here to the frontal and to the tentacle, and then we pull extra, and this is a wipe. So this is basically it for us here. We do still time this key, but this here got really out of control really fast. I was too close to the Corruptor. We had 2 people die to avoidable mechanics, but we're all human. Things happen. It's no big deal. We just run it back. We have 12 minutes, which is significant amount of time here. Like, this is, I think we'd finish this with 2 minutes left, which is pretty good. Our DPS is like not too bad. So we're just gonna skip ahead here. Actually, shouldn't skip ahead. There's a skip here that a lot of people miss. As you finish off Elderly Axe's bridge, you just hug a left here, and you can run right up here in between the 2 sides, and you'll just jump off, hug the right, and you can get past that Corruptor. If you don't wish to pull it, or if you've already pulled it and killed it, then great. I pull it by myself because I'm big chillin'. I don't need a healer or anything like that. I see a couple of my guys are still in the Shadow Realm. I think that was a mistake on their part. So, oops. We are definitely not in the Shadow Realm just yet, and we were not in a position to go to the obelisk. With Underrot, you typically want to pull at least one with the boss, because getting to the other one to our left, or our southwest rather, is a huge pain in the butt. It can be really difficult to get to, and honestly there's a lot of enemies like the ones we just pulled. Like, that whole pack we pulled is something you almost guaranteed have to pull together in that side, and that's really just not something you want to do. So we're going to go ahead here and take this worm, but be a little safer about it, to ensure that we don't die to it like we did last time. Getting the interrupts is very important. I figured we would have pulled it here by ourselves. Yeah, we do, okay. Because we don't really need anybody else. And I pulled the other guy too because I'm playing out of my mind and I'm really disgustingly good at this game. Have everyone focus down star. That was sarcasm. Everyone focus down star, and we kick and push the other casts to make sure they don't go off. One does go off. Our guy does go down. But we do salvage it. It's not the worst thing in the world here. We have them onk, and then the mage runs back. We have one more interrupt here, 2 more go down. This was really messy, entirely my fault. As a tank, I made a big mistake here. I should not have rolled, it was totally an accident. And I should not have pulled this like this, but it's okay. You don't always have to play perfectly to time your keys. It definitely is required as your key level gets up versus your gear. There's like a relationship between gear strength and key level, but in this circumstance, we're a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of what we need to clear this. We could have done it with a lot less if we had played a lot better. So it's going to be the Void Weaver here, the Spoder, as the Obelisk boss. We're going to take this pack first, just because our healer just got here, so I knew to pull. We're going to worry about the Wicked Frenzy first, ideally. Our Demon Hunter kind of pops off for a sec here, so I lose the interrupt. I lose aggro a little bit. And the Unholy Frenzy cast also goes off, so I have to kite, because I don't really want to die. It happens again here. I just eat it. think we're okay now. I think it died. Definitely don't want to eat that. That one tick did a ton of damage to me. So we pulled this guy, and we pulled this other corruptor together. That's what I intended to do, but I pulled the first one too close to that worm, so I paralysis it. We'll deal with it later. This is over percent. In reality, I did not need the other corruptor, but I wasn't quite aware of that, so that's my fault. I should have known to check my percentages a little bit better before pulling that, because this guy would have been 2.5%, and then another, I think it's roughly 5% from the last two, plus the 1 and a little bit percent you're going to get from the obelisk boss, so it would have been enough. After we finish off this grotesque horror, we're going to be moving into the obelisk. So I'll also be resing my healer because she got taken up by a tentacle, I think. We're going to go into this obelisk. I pulled this too because I'm really playing out of my mind. I'm really not happy with my performance in this dungeon, but I think it showcases that you don't have to play perfectly in order to still get things done. Your DPS can pick up a little bit of your slack, or vice versa. A really, really well pulled tank can definitely change how well a dungeon can go, and it's really, really good to see tanks that know their routes well, rather than me, who just keeps dying to worms. We keep our interrupts going here, and we keep pushing the boss. I'm calling interrupts as we're running here. I'll make sure to get this next one, and then this one's gonna go from the shaman. We try to kill it just at the end here to make sure we don't have to deal with any of the other worms. Worst case, you can just go back to the obelisk and then walk around, because you can do that safely. We kill these two guys. We're way over percentage by 6% total, because we still have one more obelisk boss to kill. So that kind of sucks. It definitely could have cut another minute off the timer, I'd say. So definitely something you need to watch out for is making sure your percent is good. In the method dungeon tools side of the video, you'll see what the route's actually supposed to be, and not what I pulled. But sometimes you have to make adjustments, and sometimes mistakes happen. So you have to work on the fly and make the adjustments that you need to. That's really what it comes down to be a really high value tank, is understanding why you do things, not following guides blindly. It's about the understanding, so that you can make your adjustments quickly. So here I think we have the blob, which is kind of annoying on this boss because of the stuff that drops on the ground, but it's not the worst thing in the world, as long as everyone is still baiting correctly, not like what I'm doing. I'm not baiting very well. It's not the worst thing in the world, but my DPS are baiting really well. It keeps going behind the boss like it should. We lust, we pop our cooldowns, and we take the blood down really fast. Everything goes away from him, and then we're safe again. Following this, this boss needs to be handled a very specific way, and the way to handle it, you want to always have the boss facing the vile expulsion that he's already put down. In addition to that, every single player needs to also be following this rule. If you don't have that happen, the vile expulsion is going to go in weird spots. You also do not want it to go against the wall, as it effectively bounces off the wall because there's no safe area for the projectile to land, so it'll just find another spot. If you face it toward the stuff that already exists, it will just stack it on top of itself, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Totally cool. We rinse and repeat this a few times. Every time that the boss hits 100% energy, there's going to be 2 bloods spawning. It'll take out 33% of his life. So we're on the last set right now. As soon as the last set comes out, the DPS should peel off the boss, because attacking him doesn't mean anything, and they should go to kill the last blood visage. Granted, your tank should still try to pick up the blood visage they attack, because it will still keep doing damage. It will melee, and it will do a lot of damage. So here I go to pick it up. I probably shouldn't have gone with them, but it doesn't really matter because it's fortified. It died super fast. So that's the dungeon, and I got bracers I didn't need. And I super appreciate you listening to my guide here, and I hope to see you in the next one. If you would like to see a specific dungeon, please leave it down in the comments. And if there's like a specific set of affixes you want to see too, I try to get most of the dungeons done every week on every affix, so I can definitely try to cater to that too. Feel free to hit me up on Discord. Everything will be in the description if you have any questions, and have a nice night. Take care.